Alright, Satsu, what's the game then? What wacky hijinks you cooked up this time?
Martin, I am shocked and or offended that you would think that just because I've picked up a new hobby of inventing things.
Right, okay, let's have a wee look. Let's see what you've got. Is this a teapot with legs?
Well, how else is it going to refill itself?
Okay. What about this?
That's just a toaster.
Right, okay. Sorry, this is on me. You know what, I was just so used to you having some wacky idea, some wacky gizmo. We'll just put it behind us. I'll go grab my mic. We'll get started. Where's my mic? Where did you put it?
Oh, it's just by the crackers and cheese over there, but I'd be careful if I were you. You see, I added a make our podcast viral button on the side. Basically, it runs a state-of-the-art algorithm that scours the web for phrases that will make the podcast blow up in popularity. You're absolutely going to love this.
Okay, right. What do you mean go viral?
Oh my god! Bruh.
2 hours later.
That's terrible. Why would you invent this?
Because it's AniMAYtion Month! By the way, can you grab the teapot? It's doing a runner again. Oh! That's gotta hurt. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of AniMAYtion Month. My name's Satsunami and joining me today is wrestler extraordinaire and Play-Doh enthusiast. It is Martin MacAlistair. Martin, welcome back.
My favourite thing about Play-Doh is eating it.
It's got a very peaty taste, doesn't it?
Hello, I was also going to do a bit there where I was just going to pretend to be Gromit and just like...
Nod?
Yeah, nod. And I was like, this is the worst medium to do a Wallace and Gromit bit on.
This is the one thing we didn't want to do.
Of all the mediums to try it, I'm doing really well, mate. I hope you're having a good time. I certainly am. How are you today?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about how your shadow puppet theatre in the dark was going, but yeah, no, I'm doing all right. Can't complain because we are indeed going to be talking about, quite frankly, one of my favourite series of all time. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is one of the best things in my life, and you can't take it away from me. As we talked about last week, we talked about, and again, we mentioned this, the 2.5D / Spider-Verse animation style with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. This week, we are going into the world of stop motion with Wallace and Gromit, which is a series that has been going on since 1989, which I cannot believe it's been going on for that long. I don't know why I was convinced it started in the 90s, which I know technically it's on the cusp, but I can't believe it's been going on for that long. So before we dive in and talk about this incredible series, I've got to ask you, Martin, what was your first exposure to this series?
So I knew you were going to ask me this, right? Because that's kind of how we start a lot of these episodes. I have no idea, right, for this. Wallace and Gromit, like, to people who maybe aren't from the UK, is institutionalised the best word? I don't know what the word is. It's so omnipresent. Wallace and Gromit has always existed, as far as I'm concerned. I have always known of it.
Yeah.
And I have always seen all of it until new stuff came out. I don't know if I'm explaining myself very well. You know what I mean? I assume what the new Star Wars films must be like for someone that's just been born now. It is omnipresent. Wallace and Gromit has always existed in all facets of British life.
Yeah, it's very quintessentially British,
Yes,
isn't it? Yeah, it is one of those things that, and I'm totally with you there, and it's funny you say that because I feel exactly the same way, because spoilers, we weren't born when this came out initially, which is really weird to think about. We weren't born in the 80s, but it is crazy to think that one day we were born, and then as we grew up, Wallace and Gromit was just there, because I remember watching it growing up. It would come on TV and things like that. I would watch it with my family. Absolutely loved it, but it's just there. We had A Grand Day Out, The Wrong Trousers, A Close Shave. Those were the three main ones that we had during the 90s that kind of circulated. And I think during Christmas as well. You know what it reminds me of? You know Mr. Bean, where you think it's a lot longer than it actually is. And that is another series I think we should review sometime, because I have very different opinions after binge watching that, but that's another story. But yeah, it's always kind of been there. And then it wasn't until 2005 where we got the film, and then 2008, of course, where we got, well, the fourth entry in the series, not including the film. Then we got another one, which we'll definitely get onto later. But yeah, it's a series, I do agree, It's always been there. I'm convinced. Did we watch this in school by chance? Because I genuinely
100%.
can't remember. We must have.
One thing as well, just, and I appreciate we're talking about Wallace and Gromit specifically here.
Yeah.
But I am going to kind of wrap this in. Just Aardman animations in general. Chicken Run was peak primary school for us. I think we were like 7 or 8 at the time, so that was like peak. And then there was that, and I'm forgetting the name of it. Was it Creature Comforts? It was on the BBC.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they're not Wallace and Gromit, when you visually see them, you think Wallace and Gromit as well. So that's all kind of there. And I think, yeah, we probably did watch a lot of it in school, just if nothing else, in the hype for Chicken Run coming out.
Yeah, because, and I want to touch on the Aardman before we go into the deep dive of Wallace and Gromit, because it was a company that, of course, it was started in 1972, which, well, I would say makes me feel old, but again, we weren't born in the 70s. And it was created by 2 people called Peter Lord and David Sproxton. One thing I found quite interesting, because I was watching the documentary on it, I think it's actually on YouTube for free just now, by Aardman themselves, is a fantastic documentary, and it dives into not only Wallace and Gromit, but all of the other things that they did. Like, I think Morph was one of them. It was like a kind of plasticine guy that ran around, and there was a lot of other projects that they worked on. And it wasn't until the 80s that they came across a very indie creator who obviously blew up in popularity called Nick Park, who was the mind and the creator behind Wallace and Gromit, and he was doing it as an art project for school, and they picked it up and they thought this was absolutely incredible. And it is amazing how he got his dream job for this, because the animation company itself, I actually thought it was quite interesting that the name behind it, do you know the history behind the name Aardman?
No, I can't say it.
I want to say it was a superhero that they came up with. So I think the combination is between the word aardvark and man, and it was supposed to be like a Superman ripoff, and it's just a guy walking and then he keeps falling down holes and things. He's like really incompetent, because they had different names that were combinations between Peter Lord and David Sproxton's name, and then eventually they decided on Aardman, which, to be honest, it's just so iconic. It's like you can not think of animation without thinking of Aardman. They are such a fantastic company, and as you said, they have done amazing films and things for TV as well. They've done Morph, of course, they've done Wallace and Gromit and Shaun the Sheep, they've done Chicken Run.
The Spice Girls music video, Viva Forever.
Have they actually?
Yes.
Because I know they have done music videos. Not even that, but they've done loads of ones. And I was like, no way. But, you know, obviously it must make sense that they have a life outside Wallace and Gromit. They did Flushed Away, which they did Flushed Away. I have opinions.
Fortunately, we're not talking about Aardman Flushed Away.
So going back, I have to say, see, when you were growing up with Wallace and Gromit, did you notice, and this is going to sound like such a weird question, because obviously the first Wallace and Gromit, A Grand Day Out, was basically about an inventor and his dog, and he gets hungry for some cheese, and he looks at the moon and he says, oh, the moon's made of cheese, you know what, let's just fly to the moon, which is such a wacky concept, but it works so well. And of course he makes his own rocket and he takes his dog there. It's got its own kind of charm to it, but as the rest of them were made, the animation got better, the models certainly got better. See, back then, did you notice much of a difference between them?
Funny enough, I went back and I watched all these just after Christmas, because obviously the new film came out. And in my head, Wallace and Gromit has always looked like what it does in the most recent film, right? That's how I picture Wallace and Gromit. When I went back and watched A Grand Day Out, I was so taken aback. That can't be what that looks like. But I'm just looking at the years the films and all the stuff came out just now. And when we were kids, A Close Shave was the most recent one. That must have been what it all looked like to us. And A Grand Day Out looks nothing like A Close Shave visually. I don't remember ever noticing, like I said, in my head, it looks like it does in the most recent film. That's what it's always looked like.
Yeah.
I think it's like that same thing with Toy Story as well. Woody looks like he does in Toy Story 4 to me.
Yeah.
Even though that's not what he actually looks like in all the films, you know what I mean? I think that's the whole thing.
Oh yeah, I had that exact same
You know what I'm talking
experience.
about?
Yeah, because I had that exact same experience watching the fourth film, thinking, oh, this Toy Story film, I'm not a big fan, but you know what? It looks absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. That must be what the first film looks like. Cut ahead a couple of days later where I'm watching the first film going, this is creepy as hell. I know it's the first film of its kind, but this does not look like what we remembered as kids. And it's just such a sobering moment when you're like, huh, that is very interesting. But it's weird how when you're younger, your perceptions are completely different, aren't they?
Yeah, your brain fills in the gaps for a lot of stuff. One of the big ones, not to go too far off topic here, but I went and watched a clip of someone playing Tekken 2 the other day.
Yeah.
And and that's one of my favourite games of all time. And I was watching, I was like, wow, this game looks terrible. Visually, again, Tekken 8 or Tekken 7 is kind of what I think Tekken looks like.
Yeah.
And so watching it on the PlayStation 1, I was like, wow, that isn't what I thought this game looked like at all. So it must be the same year, because like I said, after watching Vengeance Most Foul, I went back and I watched Grand Theft Auto Wrong Trousers closely, and I couldn't believe how terrible Grand Theft Auto looked. Not maybe terrible is the wrong word, but how primitive it looked. It's very visually icky.
It really is. And I can see why it is, because it was essentially made for the most part by a student. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think towards the end Aardman did step in and help him. But that's one of the running things, that apparently had a script, and one of the paragraphs just said something like, in this scene, Wallace builds a spaceship with Gromit. It took him ages just to get that one sequence. It's just absolutely baffling how much dedication, because I think it took him 6 years, see, to make a Grand Day Out. Something that I think is quite interesting about this whole series, and again, it'll be something we touch on later, is just the fact of how beloved it is. And to kind of prove that point, I reached out to our lovely Pandalorians out there, and they gave us their memories and opinions of this franchise. So before we deep dive into why we love the series and why certain bits don't hold up because they look like Play-Doh paralysis demons, do you want to hear some of these?
Yeah, let's go for it.
So our first one comes from SP Film Viewers, who says, a staple of my childhood and still absolutely love the franchise to this day, as per our first episode of 2025. My favourite short is honestly A Close Shave. It's got a certain darkness to it that really stuck with me, particularly the reveal at the end. We will come on to that for sure, because that is a very interesting point. Dan from Casting Views and proud member of the Podpack Collective says, I remember seeing A Grand Day Out at school. It was one of those last day of term things, where the teacher wheeled out the huge TV and VHS player on the trolley. Do you remember that as well?
Yeah.
I don't think that went away until probably the 2000s. I don't know when that went away, but I would love to know if it still existed. So he says as well, I remember finding it hilarious, and it's such a great little film. Honestly, although we're kind of joking there, I couldn't agree more. Becky says, definitely the iconic train chase sequence for me in The Wrong Trousers. I don't think any of the other films came close, to be honest. I agree with that, but again, we'll touch on that.
I can't wait to talk about that.
And the last one comes from Kenzie, who says, I don't know if this counts, but I was obsessed with the PlayStation 2 game Wallace and Gromit and Project Zoo. Never did beat it as a child, but I have fond memories of it. I have to say, that is something that I genuinely did not really know much of.
No.
Did you ever play any of the Wallace and Gromit games?
I'm just trying to rack my brain. Until you said that out loud, I kind of hadn't ever... I'm just having a wee look. I think I played a chicken run game on the PlayStation, maybe, but I'm just looking at these now. No, I never played any of these games.
Do you know, I'm convinced there was one for Windows 95, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, Wallace and Gromit Fun Pack. Wallace and Gromit Cracking Animator.
Something like that. I have a vague memory of there was a game where you had to build up the track or something. I mean, maybe I'm just making that up completely and it never existed, but genuinely, I have a vague memory of a game like that. But no, I never really got into the gaming side of it. I remember seeing when Curse of the Were-Rabbit came out, there was a video game for it, and I saw all the adverts and whatnot, but I don't know, it never really interested me. But then again, I think around that time I was trying to go for quote-unquote more mature games, so, you know, Wallace and Gromit was of no interest. But yeah, it's quite a strange one.
I'm on Wikipedia, right? I just want to... Sorry to cut you off here.
Go for it.
This is so weird. So I'm on Wikipedia and looking at the list of games, right? Underneath Wallace and Gromit, there's obviously Shaun the Sheep. And 2016, June, Wii U, Nintendo 3DS, Sean's Mossy Mole Mischief. And I clicked on it and it's diverted me to Super Mario Maker. So I don't know if it's trying to say that either this game was just a rip-off of Super Mario Maker.
Oh my god, you're right. Guys, go on to Wikipedia.
I don't understand.
Don't let the truth die out here.
I'm going to Google this.
I'm going to take a screenshot of that.
It's on the Super Mario Wiki. It is an event course in Super Mario Maker released 4th of June based upon Shaun the Sheep. Oh, it's been removed.
Why would that be part of the...
Yeah, what is? Well, there you go.
I like how one of them's just called Untitled, the Sandbox game. Also, what's the roller coaster Tycoon Touch on the Sheep?
I saw that, so yeah. That's...
What is going on with these? Anyway, sorry. Wallace and Gromit. Without any further ado, shall we jump into this series?
Yeah, give me 5 minutes to go play Sean's Mossy Mole Mischief on Super Mario Maker and we'll get on to it.
Please never say those words again. Yeah, we'll be right back after we find out what the hell a mossy mole mischief is.
Put up your Switch.
Welcome to Satsunami, a variety podcast that discusses topics from gaming and films to anime and general interests.
Previously on Satsunami, we've analysed what makes a good horror game, conducted a retrospective on Pierce Brosnan's run as James Bond, and listened to us take deep dives into both the Sonic and Halo franchises.
Also, if you're an anime fan, then don't forget to check us out on our sub-series, Chatsunani, where we dive into the world of anime. So far, we've reviewed things like Death Note, Princess Mononoke, and the hit Beyblade series.
If that sounds like your cup of tea, then you can check us out on Spotify, iTunes, and all good podcast apps.
As always, stay safe.
Stay awesome, and most importantly,
Stay hydrated.
Welcome to my friendly game club, where everyone is welcome. The podcast where we share, we play, we run and sing. Well, we don't run, but we do sing.
Hey kids, are you looking for a new favourite fortnightly video game review podcast?
Then boy howdy have we got the show for you.
We take a different game every 2 weeks and we review them just like a book club.
You can find us on all good podcasting platforms.
And some of the sketchy ones too.
Simply search for the Game Club podcast and join the club today.
Wow, I did not expect that to be so visceral, that game.
Honestly, I don't even need to play Silk Song anymore. That'll do it.
You honestly keep hitting me with the trap card of anti-jokes. I see your bit, and I'm going to reverse that bit. Oh dear. So yeah, let's talk about Wallace and Gromit. Let's start all the way back in 1989. What a fine year. Because I don't know if it was a fine year personally.
I was going to say, neither was born. Oh, that's probably what made it so good.
Oh, that's sad. This episode's over. I thought we left the depression back in the last Wish episode.
Sorry.
But yeah, let's start with a grand day out. Going back to this short film, how did you feel going back to and rewatching it?
It was difficult in a way. No, I don't know if difficult's the right word, but like I was saying before, in my head, Wallace and Gromit had a really distinct look, and actually going back and seeing two characters that look like Wallace and Gromit, being Wallace and Gromit, is very unusual. But yeah, it's dead fun going back, and it's still as charming and as wacky as ever. I don't know how to quite describe it, but there's a very Britishness to Wallace and Gromit. The fact that the main character is just this random guy, he's just a bloke, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That very similar vein to like a Mr. Bean. The Doddery character is a hero. It's a very British kind of thing to do. Blackadder's another good example of it. So yeah, even now I think it holds up weirdly. I don't know if well's the right word, but it's still charming and it's funny and it's heartwarming as ever. But visually it is kind of a funny watch. I don't think it's bad. I feel like I'm sounding like I'm kind of being mean about it. I just think it's phenomenal. It's just funny going back and watching it as an adult now. What about yourself?
I think what ruins it for me, and don't get me wrong, I still love it. I still think it's really charming. You know, I love the spaceship design. It's just so, I don't know, there's just something about it. I just love it. And I love later on, you know how you used to have that design, and again, this isn't our generation, but you used to have the ducks on the wall, and they've got the spaceship on the wall and everything, and I love the design. Everything's so iconic. You know, you've got the robot in the moon that runs off of a meter, which I think is hilarious. You've got obviously the cheese and everything. The fact that Wallace almost forgets the crackers, and despite the fact that it's about to blast off, he actively leaves his dog on there, runs downstairs to get crackers, and then runs up. And you know those are Jacob's crackers. You know, they obviously hide the thing, but you see them and you're like, yeah, that's a particular brand here. But you don't care because you're like, oh, this is so good. And I don't know about you, and this is going to out me as being a weirdo, but did you not think that cheese looked really good? When you were younger, yeah.
I don't even know, but I would definitely go to the moon for that.
Because I'm not going to lie, when I saw that to begin with, I'm like, oh man, I know there's not any cheese on the moon, but that looks really good.
Oh, we should have done an episode just on animated food.
Oh yeah, that's next
Let's do
week's
that
episode.
Tsunami.
Ooh, that's a good call actually. But yeah, I would eat that cheese. The thing is as well, he's so greedy with it. It's not even like, you know, I don't know about you.
So
but
greedy with it.
It's true. I don't know about you, but when I have crackers and cheese, right, what am entertaining you?
Where'd you go? I'll mute myself.
When you have crackers and cheese, right, do you cut yourself thick slices or... Seriously, I need to know this before we go on.
No, I don't cut myself gigantic moon cheese slices.
moon cheese slices. Is that going to be the measurement for this?
One moon cheese slice, please.
That's pretty big, I guess. It's like he takes a big stalactite of cheese. It's like, no wonder he was going to get clubbed over the head. I mean, I'm not saying the robot was right, but he did have a point. I mean, there's a law and order and there's anarchy. If you have anarchy, they're just going to take all the cheese off the moon.
There'd be no moon left.
There wouldn't be. Because Wallace is eating the damn thing.
Oh.
He's got big teeth.
He does. Oh, come on, now he's getting personal. We called him greedy, now you're insulting his personal opinions.
Well, he's got cheese-bearing teeth, you know.
He's evolved specifically just to eat cheese.
It's the wide mouth. It's what we in the British Isles call the cheese eater. Dairy farmers fear him. Anyway, my nightmares aside, as an ex-dairy farmer, apparently, I love the creativity. That's the roundabout way I was going to say. I love the creativity for this film. But I think what ruins it for me in retrospective is we are so used to the way that Wallace is characterised, that he is an inventor, a little bit doty, but he's well-meaning. I have to admit, my perception of Wallace is slightly coloured negatively as I rewatch these as an adult, but I'll get on to that. Putting love over Gromit, I mean, for God's sake. Anyway,
terrible.
That wouldn't be me. Anyway, as I said, yeah, I think because his character's so basic in that, and again, I don't mean that in a negative way to be like, oh, he's not got as much character, but I think that's just a product of, because it's the first one, it was a student project, that kind of thing. So I wouldn't say that's inherently a negative thing. That's the main reason for it. So that's why he's so greedy with his cheese. That's what I'm trying to say. But I love it. I also love, have you seen Star Wars Visions?
Yeah.
Have you seen the Aardman one?
No. When was this? This season 2 or something?
Yeah, season 2. And there's actually a cameo, see, from the Grand Day Out robot in the background. And it is the most heartwarming thing I think
Don't
I've
make me go watch more Star Wars.
Honestly, well, just watch that episode.
Okay.
Don't watch the whole thing. I mean, goodness sake. Don't be like Wallace.
I can't go back. I can't go back to the Star Wars.
No, honestly, just watch that episode and peace out. It's a really good episode. But yeah, they've got the robot from that and it just warmed my heart. I was like, honestly, that's such a nice wee cameo, wee nod. But I love it. I love it for just its absolute craziness, its yummy moon cheese, and just everything else. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Which then brings us on to, of course, The Wrong Trousers, which this might be controversial, but I would say this is the best one out of all of them.
I think it's hard to not call this the best one. This is like the choice. I'm looking just at the list just now, and there's probably ones that might be better, I guess, but I think I would pick The Wrong Trousers as my personal favorite. I could watch it over any. Like, you know, if I was given a choice to watch one of them right now, it'd probably be The Wrong Trousers.
Some people might say that Vengeance Most Foul is overtaking it, but I feel as if without The Wrong Trousers, it doesn't nearly have the same impact. And I'm not trying to gatekeep Wallace and Gromit here, but I feel as if there's such a beautiful simplicity to it as well. And it's something that, at least until the film, and even in Loaf and Death, they don't really have many characters, which is quite interesting. You know, there's not really, in Wallace and Gromit, not until we get to the later ones and the feature-length ones, but there's not really any background characters, tertiary characters. There's only the main core cast. You've got Wallace and Gromit in the first one, and then you've got the robot, and then in The Wrong Trousers, you've got Wallace and Gromit, and then you've got Feathers McGraw, who, again, is one of the best animated villains of all time. The penguin / chicken head. You know, he is absolutely iconic, and I can't believe I'm saying that about an animated penguin.
100%. And not just an animated penguin, an animated penguin with no lines, no motivation to speak of, barely any facial expressions. The perfect villain.
Can we actually talk about that for a second? Because all of the human characters, and I think this is where, slight spoilers for later on, but this is where I feel as if Curse of the Were-Rabbit and things fell down my estimations for me, because there's a lot of very verbal jokes, you know, and wordplay and things. And don't get me wrong, that is really good, but I think one thing that makes shows like, you know, Mr. Bean and whatnot so popular is the fact that although there is speech and there's a lot of lines, there is still a lot of visual humour where you see the characters do things and you react to that situation. And one of the things I want to say is just how well they characterise Gromit, because apparently Gromit was supposed to be a talking dog, or at the very least make kind of kind of noises. And I feel as if that wouldn't have worked at all.
No.
Thank God they didn't go in that direction. They were gonna, I think, but they decided, nah, we're not going to do it. And the fact that the eyebrows and the eyes, because he doesn't have a mouth really, he's like a Hello Kitty character. The eyes and the eyebrows are the only indicators of how he's feeling. Some of this gets really damn heartbreaking. You know, when he gets chucked out of the house, or rather he takes himself out of the house, he's like crying and everything. One of the moments that really got me was see when he's packing up his stuff, although it's a bit of an over-exaggeration, but it's like, I just love that silhouette where it's Wallace and Feathers McGraw having the wine.
That's so good.
And he just decides to pack up and he's watching them in the window. It is incredible. But yeah, he's hacking up the picture of them and the alarm clock and he goes out. And it's so sad. Between that and the music, it is so heartbreaking. And then you realise this is a lump of clay, you know. And I mean, granted, it took them, I think they said 6 months, maybe it was longer, but it took them a while to actually do this. But it's amazing how you feel so much emotion for, as I said, this lump of clay.
And I think that's what's so good about Aardman, but like Wallace and Gromit in general, is you're not watching clay.
Yeah.
You're watching people act. I know you can set it for any animation style, but I feel like in particular something about Wallace and Gromit where there's like such an emotional connection to it. I'm just looking at the posters now for the Wrong Trousers because I'm on the wiki page, and even in still as a frame, that doesn't look like clay to me. That looks like almost like a person. You know what I mean? They do such a good job of the facial expression's so good, the body language is so good. You're so emotionally invested the second it starts because you just get into that world straight away.
And what I love as well, and I don't know if you've ever thought about this in your life, but just the fact that it's called the Wrong Trousers, obviously, because Wallace invents a pair of trousers that you can program, you know, to walk about and everything. Why did he make trousers? Like, why did he have a feature where anybody could climb into them in the first place? On the one hand, you know, you could usually say, oh, it makes no sense, blah, 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 but somehow in Wallace and Gromit's universe, you don't question.
No, and that's the thing about Wallace and Gromit that's so phenomenal. That's part of it. They have the whole bit where they get stuck in the wardrobe and Feathers McGraw looks them in. It's just like stupid. The big sequence for this film obviously being the train sequence. If you stop and think about that for 2 minutes, there's no way that train's going anywhere apart from round the room. There's no way that it's faster than any of them walk. You know what I mean? It's so absurd. But in that moment, your brain is so allowed to switch off in a way that I think no other film lets you. Wallace and Gromit it's so unapologetically silly that you just kind of go, okay, sure. They were on the moon in the last episode. They're doing this now. Okay.
Because I think that's something that they said in the behind the scenes, that they had a set that was like 20 feet long.
Yes.
And you know, obviously the room, that's what they admit. Obviously the room's not going to be so long, but it was just amazing to see such dedication and such passion. And I think they've even said themselves that it would be very hard to replicate.
I think they've gone as far as saying now it's impossible.
Yeah.
They would never do it again. See, when you watch it, I haven't watched the specific documentary you're talking about, but I haven't watched other documentaries about it. There's a couple of frames where Wallace gets hit by the train, he gets stuck on the train, his face blurs. So they had to make like a blurred face, or they did some kind of weird camera technique where it made him look like he was travelling really fast, because it's kind of like he gets hit from the side. That's just an unbelievable amount of work for a shot that's in it for point something of a second, you know what I mean? That kind of level of detail, they would never do it again because there's just never going to be the budget for it again.
Yeah, honestly, it is amazing how well it still holds up today. Because the thing is, it's not really something you think of. And obviously, Gromit with the infinite spare track in his hands.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, I love it too.
He's got 3 arms in that scene, just as another funny point aside, because they were wanting to move so fast, they gave him 3. I just think that's so brilliant. Give me 1,000 years and I would never come up with that.
No,
like how to make that look like that, you know what I mean? My brain would never work like that. It's like unbelievable.
Honestly, they are absolutely fantastic creators. There's a reason why Aardman and Nick Park especially as well, they are just the pinnacle of stop motion animation. And yeah, I can't praise them enough. So if any of you in Aardman are listening, great job.
And also reach out to us.
Yeah, please reach out to us. We would like a goodie bag. No, jokes aside, no, I don't want a decapitated Wallace head in a goodie bag. Thank you very much, like The Godfather. But the Wrong Trousers, absolutely fantastic. It's goofy, it's over the top. You've got a penguin trying to steal a diamond, a blue diamond, which, funny enough, as of recording this episode, to tie in with Vengeance Most Foul, I think it's Visto or something, they're doing a promotion and it's, oh, find the blue diamond in our gravy. And I'm like, I don't even want to know what you're doing with the gravy. What is going on? on here? So I thought that was quite funny.
Moving on, of course, it's time for A Close Shave, the third of the short films. Obviously, great film, introduces my boy, Sean, the sheep. What's your thoughts on this film?
I thought Sean overstayed his welcome after A Close Shave. No, I'm throwing down here. This is the hill I'm dying on.
Slow down. I'm just gonna reintroduce this episode, this feature. A Close Shave is a spin-off to Sean the Sheep.
The Wallace fans. They're crafting pitchforks out of Play-Doh, right? Sean's alright, but I feel as if he overstayed his welcome. I thought, why Sean of all characters?
When Sean's not on the screen, every other catch, you're like, where's Sean?
Oh, don't putrefy him, come on now. Yeah, because A Close Shave is probably the darkest at this point that the series got. I would say there's only one other that got darker after this, which we'll come on to, but yeah, it follows a sheep rustler is kidnapping sheep for their wool, and then Wallace and Gromit have got a window cleaning business. I'm not gonna lie, I adore this film as well. I still think The Wrong Trousers is the best for me personally, but I can see why people love A Close Shave. I do think it's, ironically enough, a close second. I love the ideas of it. The idea of someone stealing sheep is just such a silly idea, but they're just stealing it because there's a wool shortage. And they are the only wool shop in town and nobody's caught on to that. I think it's so stupid, but it's so funny. And I love see the motorbike that they've got, and then it turns into a mini Spitfire. And they're all like saluting it and everything, and it's got the gun on top that fires the porridge. Again, the porridge looks great. I'm just saying. I don't want to say I'd get shot with a face full of porridge. Me with my munchies and cannon porridge. I've got some issues with food in this one. Yeah. Honestly, I think this is fantastic. And of course, you've got the Terminator core. Yes. Let's just say at the very end, when spoilers, it is indeed revealed that one of the characters is a robot and they want to kill the sheep for meat, which is absolutely horrifying because they're trying to kill everybody, to be honest. And then we get the biggest reveal, bigger than the robot, which is Wallace, of course, falls in love with a woman who looks exactly like him but with a wig on, and then she says, "Oh, I don't like cheese, it brings me out in a rash." Good. The heartbreak that man felt. Justice to my boy Wallace. But what did you think of this film?
Yeah, I think you've summed it up in just of how wacky it is. You gotta love it. I think this is something I was going to mention it in The Wrong Trousers, but the so British thing for these films of the stakes could not be lower. Yeah, which is what I always think so fun. Every other franchise in the world wants to keep upping the stakes, and they're like, no, we have to bring these stakes way down, and that's what makes these films so great. But still, everyone's going absolutely nuts to try and get more wool. You know what I mean? They got like the robot dog. This is the last of the three ones that would have been out when we were kids. Terminator dog, obviously very iconic, but like all the characters are so iconic to us growing up. It's hard to differentiate the three of these really in my head, but yeah, all three are fantastic.
No, I'd completely agree with you there because they were the perfect trilogy. I'd still say that you could easily watch all three of these and then just say, that's a great series, let's just cut it off there. Yeah. Because you're right, they do feel indistinguishable at times where it's like, oh yeah, let's watch the one where they go to the moon and eat all the cheese, or oh, let's go to the one where there's the criminal penguin with a gun, or let's go to the one where Gromit gets arrested and then a sheep breaks him out of prison. It's so silly, but I love it so much. It's the right amount of silliness. It's very, again, as I said, it's very British humour, British silliness, a lot of kind of wordplay in the background and visual humour, but it is just so well done. I do love the scene where they're reading the newspaper and then the sheep in the background are getting more and more invested and then they are crying. And again, I don't know what it is about seeing Gromit cry in these, but it's heartbreaking. Please stop doing it. Of course, we get to 2005, which, again, I can't believe it's 10 years between A Close Shave and Curse of the Were-Rabbit. That's actually really surprising because, again, as you were saying, we grew up with these. We kind of watched it whenever they came on TV. And then they were like, oh, we're going to make a film of this old series. And they're like, oh, cool, fair enough. And I'm going to be honest, I feel as if this is probably one of the weaker ones. Yeah. I don't think it's bad, but yeah, before I go on with my thoughts, I'm going to hand it over to you first of all, what were your thoughts of the film?
One thing I do have to mention before we start getting too into this film, of course.
I know exactly what you're going to
You know
say.
what I'm going to say.
It, yeah.
It won the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. I guess it was 2005, 2006. Beating out Howl's Moving Castle. This is one of these things that people always bring up. Is one of the, it should never have won, it should never have won. You know what, as a Ghibli fan, Miyazaki make better films. Make a film as good as Curse of the Were Rabbit.
So what you're saying is get good?
Get good. I do think Howl's Moving Castle's a better film than this, but that's the
No, the Academy said differently.
The Academy said differently. Yeah, this film, I love Chicken Run. Just want to put that out as well. So I don't think this is like a feature-length film versus a shorts problem. But this film kind of loses, I think, a bit of the charm of the low stakes, low key kind of silliness. And I know it is low key, but the whole Were Rabbit thing and it's never really got it. If I'm honest, I think that's the big thing for me. I'm not a big fan of the rabbits in general. I think they look kind of icky. Very much a precursor to Rabbids and Minions and that kind of mascotty, sellable toy character. Like, it's not bad by any means, but I'm looking down the list of the other films here, of all the other stuff they've done, and I'm like, oh man, I'd love to watch that again. I'd love to watch that again. This one I just feel kind of not a lot towards. You mentioned as well about the whole not really ever having a big cast of characters. And I'm actually looking at the number of characters in this film, and it's actually, there's so many that get introduced and you don't really care about. And yeah, it's just a lot. I don't know. I'm sure it's still a good film, but you know that way, in my heart, I'm just kind of like, I'm not that excited by it compared to the other ones. What about yourself? I feel like I've been quite negative there. Have you got a totally different opinion, or are you kind of on the same boat as me?
No, again, I don't think it's the worst thing. I would never say that Wallace and Gromit falls into that, it's completely terrible, unredeemable, that kind of thing. But I do personally feel as if out the core films and the main series, I feel like it's probably the weakest. It's the first attempt at a feature film. It's a blend of stop motion, of course, and CGI as well. One scene that I thought was quite interesting is, see when, I can't remember his name, but the antagonist of the film goes to see the vicar and he gets the golden bullets, which I have to admit I cracked up when they gave him the bullets and said they were 24 carat, and I'm like, okay, you won me back. But apparently the rain and that was CGI, and I thought, well, of course it's CGI. You know, that way, it sounds so stupid to say, but I'm like, of course it's CGI, because otherwise it's going to ruin the plasticine, a bit like with the scary Ghost of Christmas Past puppet in the Muppets Christmas Carol. But yeah, listen to our episode on that after this episode, of course. I don't know, I watched this before we came on tonight, and I don't know, I didn't feel the same. There were a lot of funny scenes, but I felt as if maybe just because it went on for a bit too long, and you know, he's trying to get together with Helena Bonham Carter, and
that's her.
And do you know who the villain is? It's Ray Fiennes.
Actually?
Actually. And Hans Zimmer does the soundtrack. It's like, what is a stacked cast going on?
So overproduced.
It really is. I mean, it's fantastic, but it's really, really bizarre. Again, what you were saying, because the whole point of Wallace and Gromit is they're always trying new inventions and getting on wacky adventures, as it were. There's always a uniqueness to them, and don't get me wrong, this is very unique, but I feel as if for the wrong reasons. There's a subplot where Wallace puts his consciousness or his smarts into a rabbit, and there's a creepy bit at the end where he's like, oh, don't worry, there'll be a bit of me on this bunny sanctuary, and then it's the rabbit at the end jumping up going cheese, and it's like, oh my god, you didn't reverse that. Is that rabbit in love with Helena Bonham Carter as well? Or why is there a humanoid rabbit roaming the ground? That's canon in the Wallace and Gromit universe. That's out there. Where was that in Vengeance Most Foul? Like, that would have been handy. You know? But nah, in all seriousness, I still think it's a good enough film.
I think it suffers from that thing where, see, if it wasn't a Wallace and Gromit film, we'd probably be sitting here going, that's a great film. But because we've got these kind of preconceived notions and like these different ideas for what Wallace and Gromit should be, I think that's the issue, isn't it?
Even before, and again, it's obviously because of limitations and they have a very finite amount of plasticine, but yeah, there wasn't really many side characters, whereas, as you said, you know, it did feel a bit bloated with every everybody running around. On the one hand, it did make the town feel a lot more alive, but on the other hand, you were kind of like, don't know. I remember seeing this in the cinema and kind of feeling the same way, that I love The Wrong Trousers, I love A Close Shave, and I even have a fondness for A Grand Day Out. But no, this one just didn't hit the same marks. And it wasn't, of course, until 2008 where we got quite possibly one of the best ones. Again, I was alluding to it earlier, but one of the darkest ones, A Matter of Loaf and Death. My girlfriend and I, we watched it recently. Oh my god. This gets dark fast. We've got animal abuse, we have murder, we've got body issues.
Yeah, I was going to say the body dysmorphia, yeah.
Yeah, we've got someone getting eaten by a crocodile off screen. I mean, again, it was just baffling, but at the same time, it felt Wallace and Gromit-y, if that makes sense.
I think that's the thing. It's this whole escalation of nothing is what I think makes it so funny. And yeah, it's a lot back down to being quite a tight film. You know, it's only half an hour long again, as opposed to being 1.5 hours. And it's got a voice actor from Coronation Street in it.
Which one?
Sally Lindsay is from Coronation Street.
Oh.
Sally Jane Lindsay is in Coronation Street as Shelley Unwin, apparently. That's just what Coronation Street sets you up for.
Definitely not Googling this.
Nah, you take your time.
Oh, yeah. I know that is.
Coronation Street.
Yeah, she's long gone from the series, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I know that. Don't you?
Patronise you.
Don't you question my Coronation Street knowledge?
That's next week's
there when it was
episode.
written. If there was an animated Coronation Street movie, we'd be talking about that.
Yeah, well, we're not. Don't remind me. But sorry, go on.
I don't really know what my point was. Another great film, a lot tighter. Yeah, a lot darker. They really just went all in and just, this film's going to be weird. Another big time jump as well. Was this a Christmas film? Not as in, is it a Christmas film?
Yeah.
But like Vengeance Most film when it came out at Christmas.
Yeah, it did come out at Christmas.
Because I vaguely remember people talking about it at the time, but I can't remember that much to it.
See, that's the really weird thing about this, because, and I think that's why British people and us as well, in particular, have such a fondness for it, because if you can get the perfect thing for people to watch at Christmas, you know, like the snowman and all of that, then you've made it for life, let's face it. Not even financially, just in the minds of the public and everything. And every country obviously has its own special films and TV shows, but for Wallace and Gromit, I'm just looking at the UK releases here, and A Grand Day Out came out on the 4th of November 1989. The Wrong Trousers surprisingly came out on Boxing Day.
Okay, yeah, that still counts.
That came out in 1993, and then A Close Shave, for some weird reason, came out on Christmas Eve in 1995, and yeah, Matter of Loaf and Death came out in Christmas 2008.
So actually on Christmas Day.
Yeah, but Curse of the Were-Rabbit came out on the 7th of October.
Oh, neither side for the cinema.
Yeah, maybe that's why it failed. I'm just saying. But honestly, I really like this film. I genuinely think that although it's obviously darker than the other ones, and although we kind of made slight jokes, there is genuinely a reason why this woman who was initially a spokesperson for, is it Bakelite, the bread or something, which I think is supposed to be a parody of Wonder Loaf or something like that. She used to be thin, but she got fat because of the bakers and everything, and because of, as you said, her body dysmorphia, that she decided to kill all bakers. In fact, no, sorry, not kill all bakers, kill 13 of them, because it would be a baker's dozen. And I'm not going to lie, I didn't understand why she was killing 13 until she said, I finally have it, my baker's dozen. And you know that way it clicks and you're like,
it's so good.
It's amazing. I was like, that's perfect. Perfect writing, 10 out of 10. But it is weird, and we will get onto it soon, but it is weird that they didn't continue some of the characters. Like, you've got the, weirdly enough, love interest of Gromit. Fluffy, is it? Fluffles, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, she never comes back. I don't know what went on there.
Yeah, I think there's a weird thing with that, because same with the Curse of the Were-Rabbit as well. They introduce a lot of characters and you never really see them again. I'm going to shout out some random person on Reddit apparently, but someone on Reddit, I read a thread on it a while back, and it's what is the actual chronological order of the films. And apparently it's simultaneously makes sense and simultaneously doesn't. It's kind of got that James Bond thing where like some things work in a line and other things don't. There's things in Vengeance Most Foul that contradict things in A Matter of Loaf and Death, you know, that kind of stuff. So it's hard to tell what order the films are actually in. Take for that what you will for any side characters and stuff.
I'm going to be honest, it didn't dilute my enjoyment of the other films, but yeah, it's just a kind of small minor nitpick.
Is there a smart rabbit running around? Is Fluffle still out there?
Yeah, because I mean, they definitely link The Wrong Trousers and Vengeance Most Foul.
Yeah. Those two are definitely related.
Because, and I never really read the comics, but I remember that there were adverts in, I want to say it was the Simpsons comics, because those were the ones that I collected at the time. But I remember in them, they advertised Feathers McGraw breaking out of prison and things. And it's like, oh wow, the comics and things already did that. Wow. For Vengeance Most Foul, and I just want to, before I go into this, I have to, of course, point out the very sad fact, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think between the time that A Matter of Loaf and Death came out in 2008 and obviously now, that there was a fire in the Aardman studio, and unfortunately they lost a lot of the original models, a lot of the plasticine and things, and that set back a lot of the projects. Because as we were saying before, they've worked in so many films, you know, obviously they had Chicken Run, and then I want to say 2 years ago they had the sequel film on Netflix, and then of course last year we finally got Vengeance Most Foul, because I know there's things in between it, like is it Wallace's Contraptions or something like that?
Yeah, there's like little animated shorts and stuff. Shorts, like 1 or 2 films and adverts and stuff. A lot of Shaun the Sheep. It's kind of under the list just now. Timmy Time?
The hell is Timmy Time?
No idea. Shaun the Sheep Championships? Yeah, a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, that sheep definitely outlived his...
Absolutely not.
Outlived his reputation, I'm going to say it now.
He's the GOAT. That's why he's the GOAT.
Wallace and Gromit's Cracking Contraptions and Wallace and Gromit's World of Invention.
I do want to segue, actually. I've got a segue real quick.
Oh,
I've
go
got
for it.
time for a segue. Also, in 2013, the Wallace and Gromit Thrill-O-Matic, a riveting ride, opened at Blackpool Pleasure Beach.
Oh, of course.
I've been on that. You travel about on a wee roller coaster on a giant slipper, and that's all I have to say about it. It's good fun. You go and see some of the movie scenes.
So, of course, we get on to Vengeance Most Foul, which I have to admit is probably one of the most anticipated British films of all time. It was so hyped up that even, I think it's Netflix has the rights to distribute it elsewhere, whereas here we get it on, well, we used to get it on BBC iPlayer. I don't know if it's still on there now, but yeah, we got to see it at Christmas. Everyone was huddled around the TV like, oh, let's go see this.
It's such a rare thing as well for anything on TV nowadays to, on the day, you have to watch it, and especially for an animated film, you know what I mean? Like, for it to be, you have to see us on release day, and it was like a big event.
Oh yeah, I mean, it honestly felt like travelling in a time machine, because we had Doctor Who that day and then we had this. It was absolutely wild, but at the same time it absolutely held up.
Yep.
You know, there's the pros and cons of it, but I think overall it really held up. And of course it follows the story of Feathers McGraw, who has served his 20 or so years both in real time and in the show, which I thought was absolutely hilarious, kind of going Twin Peaks-esque, I suppose. So he's like, see you in 25 years, and then 25 years later they made the damn show. Love it. But no, it was absolutely fantastic to see them again. The only thing that annoys me, and it wasn't until I rewatched A Matter of Loaf and Death, was I said this earlier about viewing Wallace as a negative figure, and it's the fact that he is dopey as an inventor, but sometimes he's dopey to a fault.
Yeah.
To the extent, and there's a running meme going around, you keep sending them to me. Oh, what's Wallace's plot for this episode? Oh, we're gonna get cheese from the supermarket, and it's like, what's Gromit's, and he's fighting for his life. That's every single Wallace and Gromit thing. Obviously he cares about Gromit. We can see that he really tries to save him and whatnot, but it really ticked me off in A Matter of Loaf and Death when he was putting his love interest ahead of him, saying like, oh, Gromit bitter and everything, and it's like, no, Gromit would never do that. Wallace, how dare you? Although it did make me laugh though when they did the parody for Ghost, when instead of the clay, it was the bread. That was top tier. They had that in all the adverts, but I don't care.
They knew it was good.
Yeah, they had to throw it in. But I feel as if without, and this is going to sound so weird, but without the wrong trousers, I don't think this would have been as popular. And I know obviously because it's a follow-up to the wrong trousers, that's why it's so popular, because it's one of the best Wallace and Gromit adventures, and they obviously want to capitalise on that, and they have a minimal amount of characters, I want to say. You know, you've got the police, and you've got the dynamic duo themselves, and you've got all the gnomes, really, and maybe a couple of side characters, but it's not as egregious as Were-Rabbit, is it?
Yeah, I'd say the whole film I think is a lot tighter than the Were-Rabbit film. I don't want to keep saying tight like the Were-Rabbit's a really over-the-top film, but you know what I mean, it's a much more streamlined, it's got a lot less going on for the runtime. I think helps it a lot.
Because even by the end, I genuinely wanted to see more of it.
Yes.
I think that's probably the crux of why I disliked Curse of the Were Rabbit so much.
Yeah.
When it ended, I was like, oh, thank God. That's it. It's ended. It's gone. I can forget those creepy rabbits yelling cheese. Whereas in this, you have so many amazing action set pieces where, and again, I keep saying quintessentially British, but what other country can you tell me goes over a viaduct with one of those Rosie and Jim boats, right? Does a Fast and Furious turn and everything and gets saved by robotic garden gnomes.
The police chasing it on the bike as well. So good.
It is absolutely amazing. And I love that it's a nun.
Yeah, that's so good.
It is absolutely brilliant. It's 10 out of 10. But before we wrap up, I've got to ask you something really quickly. What is your tier list for this series? What would you say is your best one versus your maybe not as well-liked one?
It's a hard one. I think, as we discussed, I think Wrong Trousers has to be the top. Maybe then A Close Shave, Martin Loaf and Death. No, Martin Loaf and Death and Vengeance Both Foul are both really good for different reasons. I think maybe Vengeance Both Foul because it's a film, it's a lot more grand and stuff. Loaf and Death, Grandy Out, and Curse of the Were Rabbit would be the order from best to worst. And Vengeance Most Foul peeking out the other one because it has the single greatest joke of all, the Wallace and Gromit, of course, in that there's a newsreader and his name's Anton Deck.
Oh, yes.
You know that would pop me 10 out of 10 for that. What about you? What's kind of your list?
It's hard because if it was a tier list, then most of them would be S tier, and I think maybe...
if you were just ranking it on a scale, it's dead easy. You just give them all 5 out of 5.
Pretty much, yeah. Except for Curse of the Were Rabbit, that can get a 4 or a 3. Yeah, trying to think of it. I think The Wrong Trousers, definitely. That is the one that I think I fell in love with Wallace and Gromit, where, you had the big chase scene at the end, you had the comedy, you had all the kind of visual ones in the background. It was just so creative. I mean, you have a penguin going up the side of a building with a tape measurer. That is incredible. Honestly, it was just so clever the way they did the whole thing. So definitely that film at the top. But I feel as if there's a three-way tie between A Close Shave, Vengeance Most Foul, and A Matter of Loaf and Death.
Yeah, it's hard to tell the difference. It's hard to make a difference between them.
I think maybe Vengeance Most Foul is probably ahead now. A, probably because of recency bias, and B, because of the fact that it's related to one of the greatest ones of all time. So you've got those. Grandy Out, I would say, is probably the penultimate one at the bottom. Again, I don't think it's bad by any means, but I do think it doesn't hold up as well just because of the animation and whatnot. But again, it's what sparked Wallace and Gromit's presence in the animation landscape, which is so good. As well, surprisingly, did you know Nick Park lost out on an Oscar for A Grandy Out? Well, A Grandy Out got nominated for it and he lost it to himself.
What?
Yeah, apparently he got nominated for Creature Comforts as well, and Creature Comforts won.
Amazing.
I know, isn't that weird? But I'm so glad he won it, because Nick Park is just absolutely fantastic. But going last is definitely Curse of the Were Rabbit, I would say. It's not a bad film, it's not the worst film I've ever seen. It didn't ruin Wallace and Gromit, but it's not the best, which is a shame. But honestly, as a closing point and a kind of summary for me, I genuinely think that if you haven't seen Wallace and Gromit and you are listening to this and going, that might be up my alley, genuinely go watch either The Wrong Trousers or A Close Shave first. I would recommend. I'd say if you were curious, go see A Grandy Out, but A Grandy Out doesn't really give a good representation of what it evolves into, does it?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But I would wholeheartedly recommend this series, and I think there's a reason why so many people were more excited about Wallace and Gromit over the Gavin and Stacey finale and the Doctor Who special combined. So yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. But flipping up to you for one last time, is there any final thoughts that you have about this iconic series?
I think we've covered all the big hits. I mean, don't know what else left to say. Watch it if you haven't. I mean, if you haven't, I don't know why you listen to all this, but please watch it. Please watch any you've missed. Please go on the ride at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, buy the games.
Blackpool getting a shout out though.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal series, and I think the UK would be worse off if it didn't have it. Don't you think it's that big a deal? Back to you.
I mean, even when you've got other really prolific animators and creators saying the same thing as you were saying there, that it inspired them, they want to take ideas from it. Even Matt Groening from The Simpsons, he was really positive in his take on it. He was like, oh my god, that chicken's so funny, how can we take that? And you know, we make Simpsons references on a daily basis, so it's like one of the most influential creators there giving praise to this iconic series. There is honestly nothing like it, I think, that I've seen, because you could have clones of, oh, it's a wacky inventor and their pet and whatever, but it's not even that. It goes beyond that. It's about, as we said, a doty inventor and their dog that basically gets them out of trouble 90% of the time, which is crazy. It's over the top, it's wacky, but it's the right amount of wacky and over the top that you're going to love it. And again, what's really good about it is it's good for all ages, which I know sounds like a weird thing to end on, but it's not like you're saying, oh, kids will absolutely love this, adults are going to love this especially, and it's just such a great all ages thing that it's not too, well, it is dark at times, but it's that kind of 80s and 90s British children's programming dark, if you know what I mean, your Watership Down-esque dark. There's actually a reference in that in The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Anyway, on that very depressing note, if you haven't seen it, definitely go watch it. But Martin, thank you so much for discussing this iconic series with me.
Yeah, no, absolute pleasure. Always happy to talk about Wallace and Gromit, and I will continue to talk about Wallace and Gromit every opportunity, so thanks for having me on to do it.
And yeah, before we wrap up, where can these amazing Pandalorians at home listening find your content?
You can find me all over social media, but the main places I usually post are Instagram, TikTok and Facebook. You can find me any one of those, just search up Martin MacAlistair, you will find me.
And indeed, if you want to check out more episodes from ourselves in AniMAYtion Month, as well as sadly non-Wallace and Gromit related episodes, but if you want to check us out, then you can check us out at our website, Satsunami.com, as well as all good podcast apps. I also want to thank our amazing Pandalorian patrons, Robotic Battle Toaster, Sonia, Ghostie, and Cryptic 1991. Thank you so much for supporting the show. And if you would like early access to episodes, exclusive episodes, commentary tracks, as well as our advice on how not to eat Play-Doh, then indeed you can check us out on our Patreon page, patreon.com/Chatsunami. This podcast is a proud member of the Podpack Collective. For more information, check us out at our Twitter/X page at Podpack Collect. But until next week, I cannot wait to dive into the world of, well, animation and live action with Andrew next week, where we're going to be talking about Detective Pikachu. The week after, we'll be discussing the anime hit Your Name. And then last but not least, we have a wild card on the horizon, so be sure to look out for that. But until next time, stay safe, stay awesome, and most importantly, if you're going to have some munchies, have a respectable slice, okay? I'm sick of you stealing my munchies, Martin. I'm sick of it.